welcome to Defend episode number 71. This is Vijay from the Netherlands.
Am I meant to say hello from Ray in Belgium?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And we have really brave and true guest of Closure today.
Yes.
Daniel, please
Hey.
welcome to the episode. So I think a brief introduction is in order.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You want me to introduce myself?
Yes.
All right.
We're as polished as ever, Daniel. If you've ever heard this shit before, this is exactly how delightfully polished it always is. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Go on, Matt. You do it.
Zero preparation.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah. I wrote a book a while ago, a few years ago. It's called Closure for the Brave and True.
Yeah.
And and since then, I'm like, I'm set. I did it. I'm done.
Yeah.
So I haven't done too much since then. But so
yeah, but you paid off your debt for life. I mean, I think that's for sure.
That's what I feel like. I feel like I'm like okay to just like coast on that. Like,
I think you should be. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the closure world owes you a huge debt of gratitude.
Yeah. I mean, that Ray is not joking because he didn't do the monkey quote thing.
That's right. Yeah.
Janky
I'm
joke
just
signal.
like straight down. This is like the serious posture here.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not this one. Watch out for that one.
Yeah. But let's get into this then. So how did you end up doing Closure? Maybe give us a little bit of background on where you come from.
Are we allowed to give Daniel's
sides?
full name as well? I mean, is that a nice thing?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Daniel Higginbotham, I think is the full. Yes. Yeah.
So you said Botham, not bottom. Bottom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I heard like someone recently told me that's how they would pronounce it. Bottom, Higginbotham. Hugo Duncan, actually, if you know him, he wrote like Palette back in the day.
Yeah.
So he was surprised. I guess that's the proper pronunciation.
No, I don't know. I think it's an English thing, maybe. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But you pronounce it however you want. That's fine by me. So, Mr. Higginbotham.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. I always thought it's Higginbotham or something because isn't there something like a cricketer who has the same name? Probably.
Ian Botham.
Botham. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was long.
But that's a Higginbotham is different to the
the
Ian Botham.
Probably the Higgin changes the pronunciation maybe. But I mean we'll go with exactly how you want.
You're the expert here. It's your name.
Yeah. How dare you suggest it's pronounced Higginbotham? It's like the Higginbothams and Higginbottoms have been feuding for centuries. I can't believe you would bring me on here and not do any research.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of a guy I used to work with called Burrell, but everyone called him Barrel. But he was very insistent that his name was Burrell, and it was like, yeah, mate, you're called Barrel. Come on. Anyway, go on. Yeah.
Okay, so I think now we talked about your name.
Yes.
So what has been your technical journey, like the programming journey?
My programming journey. Wow. Well. Let's see.
Back in the day.
Yes, back when I was
Gather
a
around, kids.
little lad. Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, so how I got to Closure? Well, I'll say I guess it's interesting. Well, maybe it's not interesting. I should. You decide. You decide. Opening hashtag interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Well, because it's like I find that so many folks in the Closure community, part of the reason why I wanted to learn Closure is because it's just like, oh my God, this is like all these smart people doing smart shit. I don't know what they're talking about, but I feel like for myself, like when I started doing that, like programming, it was all just like stupid little websites and stuff, right? Like back in the day with like PHP, HTML, like JavaScript. Do you remember like dynamic web page? Wasn't that what they called it back in the day? Dynamic web pages.
Dynamic
or something?
HTML, DHTML.
Yeah, dynamic HTML.
DHTML.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. but so for me, it's like a lot of the, what I've enjoyed is just doing like, so one of the first little things I made was like when I was in high school. I just got like a bunch of um, I photoshopped like my friends and like other acquaintances, I guess, heads on like various like bodies of whatever, like, and put like a little page. I don't know why I did this. I was like I don't know, 14 or 15 or something. I think there's
That's
this girl
probably
that was
why,
like, yeah, that's exactly why. Yeah. Yeah, and I remember there's this girl that was like in band class with me in like marching band who was like so fucking pissed that like at how this turned out or something like that. I forget exactly like what body I put her on, but so it was just like, yeah. So that's like, this is like the early
Brontosaurus or something.
something like that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she's listening to
And
the podcast episode now and then, waving her fist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel
Yeah.
Higginbotham.
I'm getting you, bottom.
Yeah.
Higginbotham.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She's never gonna pronounce your name right, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be the last thing I hear. Yeah. Goodbye forever, Higginbottom. And but yeah, and I remember like this web page would load. It was on GeoCities, and it would like play like a wave, not a wave, yeah, wave file, a wave
Yeah,
file.
wave files. Yeah.
Yeah. But so I did that kind of stuff for a while, and then like I got into like Ruby and Ruby on Rails. Like this was like, like version 0.11 or something like that. And I was like,
My guess, by the way, just before we go on to Ruby, is like I'm thinking PHP is the kind of modern, because everyone's talking about like why is programming so complicated. But I think for the web generation, like like you're saying, Daniel, people who grew up with really the web being the first place to program, PHP is the kind of equivalent of like Commodore 64 Basic, I think.
Yeah, totally.
I really think that's, and it's still obviously still a useful programming language, and anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know why I wanted to say that, but
No, I think that you're right. I don't know. It's something I don't know. It's something that I continue to think about too. Like, how do you capture like the kind of immediate gratification, I guess, of like PHP and then stuff, but without like all the, the pain that comes with it. You know what I mean? But so like, I did PHP for years, and like, and I got, and I was like, I don't know, what am I very early, not even 20 yet, and I was just like, so burnt out on this programming thing, but then like found Ruby and Ruby on Rails, and I did that for something like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I started to get kind of burnt out on that. And that's when I started looking into Common Lisp, because it just looked very different, looked very fun. And like someone who didn't go to school for any of this, right? Like just we can continue to try to like expand my knowledge and skills and whatever. But like, while trying to have as much fun as possible too. So like I learned Common Lisp, and I wanted to make this game. I had this idea for a game. It would be command line based, or like terminal based, text based, I should say, called Hobbit versus Giant. And the idea with this is like that you're a hobbit, and there's like a giant who's coming and like terrorizing your village. And you start out and you're just equipped with like a tobacco pouch and like a Danish, right? And it's just like, how do you like defeat this giant? And so it was like really fun. Like I was getting into like the Common Lisp object system, was like, that was interesting. And like thinking about like, okay, how do I model like the height of this giant versus like that, like the relative body sizes of these things. And then I started looking into like, well, what if I wanted to do something like this on the web? And then I was like, well, this is pain in the ass. And that's when I got introduced. Like I heard about Clojure from Alan Dipert, who hopped on, and he came in. I was working at McKinsey, the consulting company at the time, and he for whatever reason they hired him to come in and talk about Clojure. And then I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. It's like, it seems like it has, it's like smoothed over so many of like the weird little warts and stuff of Common Lisp. But then also you have access to the JVM and like this whole ecosystem. So I was like, let me give this a try. I remember like one of my first posts, like after I started doing this, like on Reddit, was just like like trying to build like this whole little Hobbit system and stuff. And I was like basically asking like, well, how do I have objects? Like, where are my objects? And I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Dmitry Sotnikov who like very patiently explained to me like, no, like that's not how we do things here.
Yeah.
So
nice. And
so that's that. Yeah.
So, but that is for fun, right? I mean,
yeah, but hold on, what happened to that Hobbit? I want to know. You know, it's like
I think the Hobbit and Giant sat together and then smoked weed. I guess
they've got the tobacco pouch. I mean, you know, this is already an intriguing. Yeah, this is an intriguing beginning for me. You know, is there something at the bottom of that tobacco pouch
that's the long bottom leaf. It's Higginbotham leaf. It's a different kind of leaf.
No, that's the dank leaf. You need to get the Botham
Higginbotham leaf. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah.
So you did end up making the game Enclosure then?
No, I never did. I just
So as we speak, everybody's dead in that Hobbit town because Giant basically killed everyone.
Yeah. No, it's like a Tamagotchi, but like on a much vaster scale. Yeah.
But then how did you transition into so you're doing Ruby on Rails professionally, for some time. So did you pick up Clojure professionally as well, apart from having this text adventure?
Oh yeah. Well, it's like I turned all the McKinsey systems into like text adventure based like
finally all those PowerPoints that they produce are now plain text now. Thank God.
Yeah.
Text files.
Yeah. It was like all these consultants with their Excel files. I was just like,
I'm not using org mode.
yeah. Before you do this analysis, you must answer me these questions 3. But no, I was able to. It was cool. Like I had a lot of latitude, and I was able to just start kind of introducing Clojure in just kind of small places. Like no one really cared. I mean, there was like a little bit of conversation and stuff, but yeah, it was it was like the classic. It's just a jar file, you know. Yeah. So it's cool. I ended up doing. I think I built some kind of like internal like community forum thing first with Ruby, and then like rewrote it with like Datomic and Clojure.
Yep.
And there was this other thing that they were building. I don't know. I don't want to get into it though. I feel like it's kind of boring. There's like maybe like a okay story there about like management and how they oversell things, but like it's, but yeah,
couldn't be possibly true of McKinsey though. Yeah. Truly.
You're right. They would never.
No.
Yeah.
You don't work for them still, do you?
No, I don't work.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Let's go then.
Right. Fuck them, guys. No, of course, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're happy not to work for them anymore.
I think we should put a disclaimer saying that, you know, listeners of the podcast, please note that, you know, we don't endorse this. We are not sponsored by McKinsey. And
we're not sponsored by McKinsey. We don't want to be sued by them either, in fairness.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, they're all right.
It's great.
For balance, McKinsey, whatever. Yeah. That's about as good as balance I can get, really, from fucking.
Yeah. Anyway.
They may be neutral, probably not. Right. Yeah. So, you left McKinsey in a cloud of glory.
Yes. No, I was halfway through my book at that point, and I was just like, I'm halfway through. I don't need you anymore. Don't. I've got this book that's free online.
Wait.
What's
before going to the halfway level? So, why did you start with writing a book about Clojure? Like, what was the thinking process?
So part of it was I liked Clojure. I wanted to use it more. And I felt like part of the way to get there would be to have more people actually in the company that could use it with me. So I was like, why don't I start teaching people? And I started doing that, and as part of that, that's when I started writing. I'd been writing some like Clojure blog posts for a while, and that was fun. And then I just started doing it. I think part of it too was like one of my coworkers was like, "Nah, you don't write in like an intro book for like this programming language. People have already done that." And I think part of me was just kind of like, "You don't tell me what to do. Nobody tells me what to do." You know, and
people tell me what not to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But have you written? I mean, you wrote the blog posts, but I mean, I've got to say, I think you're a very good writer. So, like, did you have practice before then, or what? What was this your first actual book?
That was definitely my first book. I wrote. I think probably the largest thing I wrote before then was like I wrote this kind of short guide to visual design. Is visualmess.com.
It's really, really nice, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny to me to look at it now because it looks like so dated, but I feel like the content is still pretty relevant. So
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Wow, you did do some research. Wow.
Yeah, because 5 minutes before getting on the podcast. Like, who is this guy again? Higginbotham? No. I mean, honestly, I mean, this is. I think, especially the, when you see or when I see the way that you build websites, all the websites that you build, your Flymission Studios or Clojure for the True and Brave, or the Clojure Jobs website that you're building, there is a certain sense of design sensibility that you have, style that you have. So if I see that, I can see, this looks, there is a kind of a overarching principles that you can see, but those are difficult to explain, right? And when I saw some time ago the visual guide that you explained with the cats pictures and everything, and like how to group things, how to redesign things, it reminded me of there is this lawyer turned he was also into racket, Matthew Buttrick.
Yes.
Practical guide to typography. I mean, like it reminded something like that level of thinking behind the design. It's not just, I'm gonna just slap in some CSS and shit whatnot, but I really appreciate it. That's really, really nice. So people who are listening to this, I think you should go and check that out. And I think you also have the link on your home page as well, right? For that one. For
the visual guide. So.
Yep.
How else did you get it, VJ? So come on.
Sorry? No, I mean, I knew this because I told him not to do this.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really super cool because this is something that you don't usually see in programmers, right? I mean, they think that we're not designers and we just write code. And anyway. So please give the background about that thing now.
Oh, sure. No, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like Matthew Butterick, like he's one of my heroes, because it's like his work is just really good. It's like he created this whole language for writing books and then wrote books with it, and it's just he's also he's an excellent author. He's
and all the fonts that he made are fucking good. I still use Triplicate from him, which is a really beautiful monofont. And
nice.
Anyway,
cool.
So let's talk about the visual design thing. How did you come to that part as well?
Sure. Yeah. No, I don't know. I guess I feel like it's I've always been interested in design. Like I like art. I like visual art. I like photography a lot. I do a lot of photography myself, but I think so I've spent a lot of time like reading about design and trying to design my own little things like here and there too. And I think I decided pretty early on in my career, it's like, okay, I can pick one and get kind of okay at it. And so I picked programming, but I still like to, here and there, like dive into things where I get to actually design stuff. But to me, it's like, it is, I feel like all this stuff is just about, how do you communicate with other people? right? And I feel like that's totally relevant in programming too, right? Like you know, so much of like the best practices and whatnot that you have to learn, like when you actually get a job and have to work with other people, is like how do you communicate these different ideas like in your code with other people, right? And I mean, I don't know. I guess like a lot of it for me is I think about the stuff coming down to kind of like cognitive ergonomics. You know, you only have so much working memory, right? And then for example, and then there, like your brain has like certain biases and has like certain ways of processing information, right? So like with programming, it's mostly linguistic, but there's also a bit of a visual element to it, like to how you actually structure, like with white space, the code, your code, and then there's like a little bit of structure too, with like, you know, file system and layout as well. That's arguably just more kind of like the linguistic part of your brain as well. And then so like visually, like, you know, there's like rules to how your brain processes information in a way that it's like very easy to make sense of something.
But
so I don't
in
know.
that
I think
sense, do you so thinking along those lines, do you think, how do you compare Clojure with Ruby stuff that you did? Because Ruby is also kind of, you know, like there is certain sense of beauty to Ruby, right? And it's a very simple language, very readable, and that kind of thing. And with Ruby on Rails being super popular, because, you know, as you said, like cognitive ergonomics or something, you know, the amount of things that you need to know is a bit less to get started with Ruby or whatever. So how do you compare on this on this item, Ruby and Clojure?
Yeah, that's. I think there's a few different ways I think that could be answered. So yeah, there's just, I think, based on like on the kind of basic level of the emphasis on naming things descriptively. That's more of a kind of cultural practice, I guess, right? Like you know, you could write C code and just like really insist that people like name things, you know, descriptively, right? But in Ruby, they just happen to like that's just kind of omnipresent, I guess, right? It's part of the Ruby way, I guess. But in terms of there's another element of your question too, in terms of talking about like Ruby on Rails, like as a framework, and being able to get started quickly with that and like building things versus like in Clojure, like that's not really, you know, that's not really the case. Though like plenty of people have made like a lot of things that do make it a lot easier, and you can, you know, follow, for example, you know, Dimitri's, you know, books and guides and stuff, and just like get started. But I feel like there is a difference there between like in the Ruby on Rails world, there's like a very well defined set of concepts. So like when you're talking about cognitive ergonomics, like one of the main ideas is this idea of chunking, like being able to you know, well, it's just like another word for abstraction, I guess, right? Being able to like rely on just like one kind of token in your mind to like represent like a kind of broader thing. And with Ruby on Rails, it's nice because that you don't actually have to know, you know, what actually that token, like all the details for what that stands for. You can like, there's a kind of progressive enhancement, I guess, to the process of building a website. And you like, you learn more, you can learn more about the internals, but you don't have to know them at first. And then you can learn more until you get frustrated and quit using it because it's like, this is, you know, won't do, this will never do what I want it to do. But that's okay because it can do a lot of things that a lot of people want it to do, right? Whereas like I don't know. So this is okay. So the other thing that's been going on for me, that this is like my weird little obsession, my side obsession, is like I have been trying to build a Clojure framework for like 4 fucking years.
Wow.
Sorry, you kind of
I'm on mute. I was just wondering, you know, like you've got a side obsession. It's a bit
yeah.
We'll come into your main obsession a bit later. Is that the idea?
After we go through all the side obsessions, then we go to finding the main quest.
Right. So the side obsession is the frameworks for closure. Yeah.
Framework for closure. I'm like, what would that look like? How can you take like all the all the amazing benefits that closure gives you in terms of like data orientation, immutability, all that stuff, and then like make a framework that's like actually that could only be created in closure, for example, right? Like what would that look like? And I feel like I've been flailing around at this, and I don't know. So we don't have to talk about that, but I do think, yeah. But
well, bizarrely, I was listening to DHH today on another podcast, the co-recursive podcast. And he was saying that, like, his perspective is that it's all contextual, essentially, is that you end up kind of picking tech for the thing that that meets your needs, either be that like technically, you kind of like aesthetically, emotionally, or whatever, something matches your needs. Or I mean, you can always get told what to do by your boss, but that's a different story, right, if you like, But if you're picking technology, if you're deciding what to do, then those are the kind of drivers for that kind of thing. But I think with him, I mean, obviously, he's a really interesting guy, but he's very strongly opinionated about certain things, and he makes decisions, and that's the decision that he makes. And and if you don't agree with that decision, then essentially you're out, and I think that's okay. I quite like that view of frameworks where it's very opinionated. And that's kind of what you're coming to as well, isn't it? With this, like, what you're saying is your opinion is that data orientation is the big thing of closure. So if I'm going to make a framework, it's going to be opinionated around that concept, for example.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things about what you said, like, because what you said about like meeting needs and bringing up like the aesthetic and emotional needs, like that's super interesting. Like talking about it as just like we're all humans and like we are making these like human choices. But when it comes to opinions, I mean, for me personally, like the data orientation, I think is like that's one of the huge things that closure brings to the table. But I don't know that I've necessarily thought about like that as being like the thing for what I'd like to do. I mean,
the reason I mention it is just bizarrely that and you haven't heard the previous podcast because it's not released yet, but the podcast, the last podcast we had was with Jonathan Shavitz, and he's written a book about data oriented programming. And he was talking about this, so maybe it's like in the zeitgeist. I don't know. I mean, but I think data orientation around closure has been in the zeitgeist for a long time. So, but he reckons that data orientation is not in Wikipedia. It's not out there. It's not a concept which is well understood. So we have to talk about it more. So we're doing our duty here by helping to promote that concept a bit more.
Okay.
And linking things together.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I like that. I'm like, I don't know if that's the main thing for me. And I like that you're coming back with, but I think it is, or at least it should be.
Well, I don't know if it is. I know. Could be, it couldn't be. It's up to you, It sounded to me like it was, but
and you've been building this web stuff with closure, right? So did you kind of reach to a point, because you said you've been thinking about it for 4 years already? So did you reach to a point where okay, these are the core principles that I build my closure applications with that are a bit different than Ruby on Rails, for example?
Yeah, gosh, it's hard because it's been so long since I've like Ruby on Rails is like so far in the past for me. I guess like the parts that still stick out for me are like the more human parts of like I want to I'm like chasing that high of like I can just do this thing and I got like a website out there and I can show it to people, like that's fun, Like I had one of my early websites was it was phobiatopia.com, and you could this was like around when like Google released like like the Google Maps API or whatever, and people could just type in whatever they were afraid of, and it would put a pin down, and you could see like kind of like look around the world what people were afraid of. And
What
yeah,
you mean,
it was like
what
super
would
silly.
like people are afraid of the Twin Towers or something?
That's
Maybe that's a bad example.
I'm not
too
sure how
early.
to react to that. It's like there's this one group that's like this one location.
Yeah, you put those two things together. This could be a powerful tool.
Yeah, no, that's bears. A lot of people put bears, which is kind of
okay.
surprising.
Yeah, fair enough.
Kind of surprising. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is around like 2004 or 2005. But anyway, stuff like that is just like fun. I just and so that's kind of like what sticks with me, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I guess some of the things that what I got burnt out on Ruby were like some of the kind of classic problems that we as like proper functional programmers like look down on, like, oh god, I have no idea how this object got into this state, like, and this has happened to me like 20 times today. I'm sick of this shit,
Right.
So like so like less of that. I do think people always talk about like, oh, frameworks, there's like this magic there, and that's like it gets to be like so frustrating having to like untangle all that magic. I think unfortunately I've added a little bit too much of that to my thing, and I'm trying to like go through, like, I want to do like another iteration of my private Daniel only framework, to kind of before I put it out there to like unmagic it a bit. But so some of the anyway. So you said I've been thinking about this for 4 years. I don't know that I've been thinking about it so much as just like stressing about it, and but so some of the ideas. Do you want to get like the greatest hits ideas that I've had about this?
Yeah,
And you can
come
see
on,
what
let's
you
do
think.
it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the ideas is, I think that this simple versus easy thing in the Clojure community, I think that's like that's idea. I think it served its purpose, but I think it's like reached its expiration date. I mean, honestly, I think even some of the earlier talks that like Rich gave, and obviously not to knock Mr. Hickey, and like, who cares if this if Daniel Higginbotham knocks Rich Higgy on this podcast, but there are a couple of these podcasts which I felt like were kind of like strange and almost like pretty illogical, but like when it comes to like this idea of like simple versus easy, and so I think that idea is like way past its expiration date, and I can talk more about that if you want to.
But just a second, I mean, don't you think that people want? I mean, I think his initial thing was easy has kind of got us a whole bunch of hidden complexity, so we need to make it simple. But I think simple and easy seems to be like no one's going to object to that. I think if you drop simple, then everyone, then people are going to give you shade. Let's say they're going to throw a shade on you, and they're going to like give you shit. That I think simple is probably going to be something which is going to be hang on, mate, we need it simple.
Yeah, but so when you say people are going to throw shade on you, like, who are you referring to? Like, to Clojure programmers, or to like people like in general
on the street? Higginbotham, no, keep it simple.
But because so here's the thing. What I mean, like, would you want to work with something that's like built as like, this is simple, but it's also like really fucking hard, or like
no, obviously not. No.
Right. So to me, it's like it's so okay. Here I want like this isn't like my backlog of blog posts, but so here's some of my thoughts on this. Right. So first, like, in order to make this point about simple versus easy, like the definition for easy that's given is a speculative definition, and it's not how anyone actually uses the word. So he talks about easy as things being close at hand, right? Yeah, but who uses it that way? You know what I mean, right? But like, the idea of easy to me is just that there's not much work involved. Like, less work is easier, right?
Yeah.
And so like and so in one of the talks too, he talks about this idea like why do we prioritize making a website in a day? He says that's stupid, and like that to me, like that feels wrong to me. Like I feel it just like it's because like that is valuable to so many people to be able to make a website in a day,
Yeah.
right? Like that's not stupid. People are able to like improve their lives dramatically by being able to do that, you know, right? And so when you talk about like these tools exist in a context, right? Like for a lot of people, like like people don't need necessarily want to be like the John Coltrane of making a websites or whatever, and like that's fine, right? And so like this idea, you know, simple versus easy, and then like kind of having this kind of disparaging attitude toward people who like don't want like the simplest possible thing, and then have to compose all that stuff together themselves somehow. Right?
But I think it could just
So,
come
like,
back to the disparagement is around this kind of. I think if the machinery that was giving you the thing that was built in a day, the website in a day, was itself a simple tool, and had like it was easy to understand or whatever, or was kind of like it had growth in it or whatever, then maybe I think the disparagement would be a bit less. But I think that's what he's trying to disparage is complexity. To me, it's a bit annoying that he chose easy, because my takeaway from that is that he's just against complexity, and complexity is often hidden by systems that make things easy for other people, but they're taking on a burden themselves that is maybe unsustainable.
Yeah, no, and I get that. Like, I get that that's like the kind of argument that he was making. You know, I just think that it's like the overall thing was like I ended up finding it like unhelpful, because if the idea of complexity is like co- combining things together, right? And in a way, like in my mind, what we're talking about is like work, the amount of work involved over the entire lifetime of your interaction with this thing, right? So that's why complexity sucks. Is because it it's like there's arm mortgages or whatever that led to the housing crisis, right? You pay the low interest rate at first, and then later on you get stuck with like the really high interest rate, and you can't pay that anymore, and then you're fucked. And then and it's 2008, and then Daniel Higginbotham has like lost his job twice, like because of the financial crisis, and so like I get it, but I also do think that there's but because like that is like a more I feel like that nuance hasn't really become so much of the closure culture, but what part of it has become is this like easy, gonna look down on that, and I feel like that's and maybe not so much, not with everyone, and maybe not so much anymore, but I feel like that was maybe a part of it, and like that just makes me sad, because it's just like I think that things I don't know, I do want to make things easy for people.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
agree.
I think
right on. Yeah, come on.
Isn't it?
This is the bars you're spitting down here. They're righteous. Come on.
Well, it's like
this
what
really
are we
good.
doing as programmers if we're not making things easier for people? You know what I mean? Like the value
absolutely,
of simplicity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that is the value of simplicity. Like if we had like infinite like mental capacity and could keep track of like infinite complexity, right? Then like these issues wouldn't really matter. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? Like because it wouldn't be any additional work, right?
Yeah.
The value of simplicity is that it makes things easier. So I'm just saying like that. It's backwards. It's backwards.
But isn't it more contextual? Because I think I'm trying to come at this from a different angle. Like when Richie was talking about simple versus easy, in the context of programmers, right? You were saying we need to make things easier for everybody, not just programmers. So because these days there is the programming is now not only like programmers thing anymore, given the whole no code stuff and millions of companies that run on Excel, for example, without having any programming, quote unquote, programming experience.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
so there is the easy part, right? There is the easy part that we're pushing for, because programming is not just these elite people who understand the systems and abstractions and we can keep in mind and this kind of shit. This is now slowly, programming is being more commoditized and more how do you call that, like brought to everybody knows about programming now.
Democratized, I think, is the word you're looking
Yeah,
for.
that's a good word for it. Yeah.
So in that context, if 10 years ago, when Rich was talking about it, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know, based on his experience, probably at that moment, I understand that it was mainly targeted towards programmers. So we wanted systems that are simple, but okay, we know that they are difficult to build, so that was okay. But now the world has changed, so that's my understanding of it. So do you think that is that the way that you're going as well, in terms of the expiration date of the concept? Like, it's not just limited to that, or do you think this is completely expired, so we shouldn't use this analogy anymore?
Well, I think to me, the value of that analogy and the value of that talk is to like really clarify like the value of simplicity, and to some degree clarify what simplicity means, right? And specifically, I do think that when we're talking about closure and like when we're able to like look at like object-oriented programming languages, and like we're binding like state and the methods for like changing that state together into like this one thing, right? Like it turns out like that was a bad idea, right? I mean, I think I think we can all agree here. Like we're in a safe place to agree. Like that was yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so to me, I don't know. This is how I took it. Like this is like the main the kind of a kind of broader like rationale or justification for like why that is not a great way of doing things, and why having immutable data structures by default, for example, is like a good idea and a good way of doing things. And I this is like again, I'm just here day in and day out with like my cats and my dog and stuff, and like I don't like I'm never gonna have like a rich hickey level of impact, or be able to, I don't know, I don't think I'm necessarily even interested in like thinking through things through to the same like degree and depth. But I will say that like the value of that, like simple versus easy, it was because it was like provocative, and it was like a way to it was a way to really highlight the nature of closure, and like the rationale behind it, and the value that it brings, and how it can make your life easier over the long run, right? And so and I'm also like, I'm not trying to like do his talks a disservice or anything too. I think that he's like you were saying earlier, Ray, it's like he's no one would say simple and easy. Oh no, thanks. I'll just say take simple, please. Right. But what I mean by that is like when I talk about I think that this kind of I mean, it's just like a weird debate to be having. It's like, it's weird. I don't think it ever, like, it doesn't come up as much anymore. But I think it's weird for there to still be some kind of initial friction, if like if someone were to try to make things that would make programming easier for closures, right? And that's, I don't know. I'm saying that now, and I'm like, wait, that's not fair. People make things that are easy, like to make it easier all the time, and no one's like, too easy. But
so I think I'll give you an interesting example where I feel like in closure, it's still a bit of a live debate in my opinion, where people. I'm not saying again that anyone did anything wrong or bad, but somebody somewhere wanted to make like life at the REPL a bit easier, yeah. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to make like this like Stuart Sierra wanted this like reloaded workflow. Why? Well, because it made his life easier. Yeah. But when I look at that, I don't like it, because yes, I know it makes your life easier, but it means that now I have to think about components everywhere. and it's like an infestation in my thinking, in my brain, and in my code, because he's mixing up the state of the application with my program now, and I've got to think about that, and I really hate that. Well, maybe I don't hate it, but sorry, Stuart. Please do come on the podcast.
Yes,
we can debate it. I'm pretty sure we'd have a lively debate about it. But I'm not a fan of that. So then you have other people doing these things, like Dimitri, and there's other people as oh man,
yeah.
The guy gave a talk at the Dutch Closure Days, and he's been on a podcast as well, and I can't remember for the life of me. The guy who wrote Ring, Weave Jester.
James Reeves.
James Reeves, yes.
Yeah.
My God, yeah.
I stalk all the Closure devs. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is great, and he made a great talk about how you can use data to drive the repo, reloader workflow. And this is really interesting. It's really good because then, but again, he's saying multi-methods are the way, That's the way you do it now. It's not these like, you don't have to, think about components. You have to think about multi-methods, and it's less intrusive. And I think I always think that this is a really good discussion in Clojure. Actually, it's like, because they're both trying to make things easier for us, and some kind of like, let's say, there is some taste around this, around what's palatable to a kind of like, maybe it's all Clojure programmers, let's say. A lot of Clojure programmers really like this idea of the reloader workflow, and nothing wrong with that, But I think again it was kind of got rejected a little bit because of this joining together. I'm not going to say the C word, the joining together of things. It's a family show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. So the thing that, like, what I'm left with is that, like, we have to join things together somehow, right?
Sure.
And I think that's where what I wish that there was more of in those talks was like, but how? Like, how? What are, like, okay, so with like object-oriented programming, like that was a bad way to do it, right? But then like going forward, there's so many aspects of a program or a system that you have to join things together to make them. So like how, and I don't know, but but my boss isn't listening. I don't know. But yeah. But anyway, but I hear what you're saying though about like, I really like Integrant, James's system there, and I think it's I don't know. I could talk a little bit more about like my thinking around like, well, you have architectural components in your system. You just do. You have to capture them somehow. They do have a life cycle. You have to. It's probably a good idea to eventually like capture that somehow, right? So how do we do it? I don't know.
I agree
but
with that.
I see you sighing. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not sighing. Jesus, no. I'm absolutely not. No, I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm really happy to hear these things. No, because I think these are really the challenges that programmers deal with day to day. I think all this all this like this theoretical stuff is great, and it's great to motivate the thinking. But in the end, you're right. We need to have practical answers. I like Eric Normand has this. Well, it's not his thing, but he has this onion architecture thing where, like this. And I think several people have written about this, where you kind of essentially, you have the pure functions in the middle, and then you have the I/O and all these other state transformations at the edge.
Right.
And I think these are like interesting architectural patterns, let's say, to keep things simple in the middle and accept some complexity where it's completely necessary. I mean, where are you going from an architectural perspective there?
Well, so like with my little thing that I've been toiling away on for 4 years in obscurity in the dark in my closet. Yeah, well, Integrant's kind of the foundation for it.
Right.
I think it's just like it's just a really good idea and it's executed like really well. So part of my thinking around this, what I kind of keep coming back to, and I'd be interested, like really interested actually to hear your thoughts about this, because I haven't talked about it too much, like one-on-one with people. But what I keep coming back to is the operating system. It is, I mean, I was reading something like back in the 80s, I guess, like, so I read someone saying like there'd be like an operating system coming out like once a month or something, right? And that's kind of like the situation that we have kind of like with frameworks, right?
Yeah.
And but so like the problems that we're solving, like with a framework or with the operating system, I mean, I have this whole blog post where I'm like, I think an operating system is actually a framework. But the idea here is like you have some kind of resources, right? And you have to like manage those resources somehow. And like that's not like not the main work of whatever your application is, right? And like as new resources come along, you have like cloud resources, browsers. That's a kind of like new medium. Like you develop new frameworks to kind of capture those. Capture like the life cycle and interactions with those resources, like management of those resources, right? And so like Integrant, like when I see that, I'm like, this is kind of like system D or something, right? Like you are defining like the graph of things that need to get started, and like also how to start them and shut them down. So that's kind of like where I'm like how I think about it. And then so like with web stuff, I'm like, okay, like thinking about forms as a kind of resource in the same way that like a file or something like that would be a resource. Like it has a pattern of interaction with it. It has its own life cycle, and it'd be nice to just capture that once so that people can easily write their forms, so that people can you can get that fear data collection website out there as quickly as possible, right? But so like that's something like also Ajax requests, doing things like when I submit this form, it should show some kind of activity indicator while the Ajax request is live. That's something that should be like, why do I need to do this? Like come up with this again for like every site that I'm making. I don't know if this is really answering your question, but so yeah, like architecturally, I feel like Integrant is like great as like the kind of foundation for this is expressing like these are the different. I mean, I like that, and I like the kind of component mindset because it gives you. I like how it gives me it's kind of like an aid to thinking about like what are the boundaries of the different parts of my system and how do they relate to each other? How do I make like expose like the smallest interface, I guess, possible, like among these different components, right? Integrant's particularly nice because it is like you express that all in data, and then that gives you like a lot of nice properties about being able to swap out different components like for your tests, and that I've had a lot of success with. So I don't know. That was about like 2 minutes, I guess, of stream of consciousness around this stuff.
I'm trying to think about like with the web. I think web is very interesting, but it's also complicated in the sense that I think it was a good analogy between system D and the integrant, like the life cycle of things, stopping and starting them. With the like you're filling out a form and you're then like giving back the answer. These interactions always seem much more complicated in the end. They seem almost unique. So where do we get the abstraction that kind of like nails that to some extent, or gives you the kind of like 80% experience that you can then kind of like tweak according to some needs? Because that seems like a very like what should we say? That's ineffable, kind of difficult to. Well, for me anyway, I'm a small brain guy, so I don't quite grasp it.
Well, after the podcast, I'll give you the link.
Okay.
My members only secret secret framework only. GitHub repo. Yeah, yeah, subscription only, yeah. But yeah, no, it's like, but so I think it's a really good question. I don't know. Some of the, so I don't know if I have a great answer, but some of the things I think about are like, over time, different kinds of resources get introduced. So like a database, I think of it as like a kind of resource. Like, yes, that's its own program, right? But it's also like now like, and people write databases and get paid money to do it. So like for them, like that's their product, right? But then for other people, it becomes like a building block. And like now here's a set of interactions for a database. And databases are fairly complicated. And yet like we're able to define like here's the set of interactions with this thing. Like here's the set of events that it will respond to. Here's the kind of different operational states it will be in. Of like, is it in the middle of a transaction or not, or like, right? Like with forms, you can do the same thing. You can just try to enumerate like what are the different events that it can respond to. What are the different operational states which it can be in, which are like that's different from like the kind of content state. Like operational state would be like, is this valid or not? Has this been submitted or not? And so the kind of like where I've been going with it is in part. Part of it's like for me, like what I've been doing is breaking it down to like, starting with inputs, right? So like each input, like so my little thing like uses reframe, which I is also I think just really good. I like it a lot. Yeah, thumbs up. Yeah,
thumbs up, big thumbs up there. Yeah,
yeah. So the idea, like one of the ideas I think has been one of the better ideas that I've kind of worked out over the last few years is to kind of use kind of use the global state atom in reframe as like the file system, and to say like every form is going to have a path basically on this file system, and you're going to like name all the different inputs. And so because like there's a kind of consistent organization to how you model and capture your forms, that opens up some possibilities, which I can talk about in a little bit. But in terms of like actually dealing with like how, there's so much that's possible with forms. Some of the things I've found useful, like one is that like form. So one of the things that's tricky is like form validation, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Because there's so many different. You can have it like the server side validate it, right? But so where I've kind of landed with it is just like, oh, it's not even just validation, because you don't want to just say like, is this valid or invalid? There might be like other kind of like metadata that you want to display with inputs, right? Like there's like a specific example that's coming to mind, but like we've seen stuff like that. I'm trying to think of a specific example. I can't, but they exist. Trust me.
Yeah.
But what you want is actually a function. Like you want to have like a function of the input, or maybe like perhaps like of the form like as a whole, with but the function would be like its output would be scope to just that input, right? But when I say a function of the form as a whole, it's not just like what is the contents of that form, like that input's value, but it's also like what are the DOM interactions, like what are the browser events that it's respond to, like has it been blurred or not, right? You don't want to start yelling at someone that their username is too long like as soon as they click in the field, right? Like that's a bad user experience. All right, so I don't know. That's where I've landed with it. I feel like actually pretty happy with it. It's like that with just validation, and then like with the framework itself, it handles things like it produces a kind of like component factory in the sense that like you have a multi-method, which you can say like input, like the input keyword text or text area, or just even create like new custom form elements. Like I use this myself on my websites to use like a markdown editor. But like that's something that's really cool about like reagent, where you can say like, oh, functions are components. Like that's what allows you to kind of do that, which is really nice. But with it, the way this kind of like input component factory works is that by default, it has all these different handlers set for you to like call the reframe dispatch of on change, like this input is going to like it's pre-populated with like the path for that particular attribute that you're trying to modify, like in the global state atom, right? And it just kind of like takes care of that stuff for you, so you don't have to like this. I say not that's a decision you don't have to make anymore. Like, am I going to store this locally in some kind of atom? Do I store it in the global state atom? That I feel like it's like become a lot easier to just like pump out a form, you know.
So you're building on, so you're using reframe and integrant and things like that to compose your new framework, or is it the right thing to say? Or
yeah,
you're
that's
okay.
accurate. Yeah,
nice.
So with the going back to the kind of like the paths thing is just to so I understand it a bit better. Is the idea that like let's say you have like five input fields, I don't know, name, email, phone number. 3. Right. Okay. I can't do more than 3. There's a list, and 3 is the max. So yeah. So we got the name, the email, and the phone number. So are you saying there's going to be like a path for each of those 3 things, and then there'll be a validator associated with the phone number, with the email, with the name, and then there's another thing which looks at the whole form, or is it more clever than that?
Yeah, no, it is not more clever than that. It's
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So it is simple.
It's simple. Yeah.
I don't know. Like sometimes I go back.
That seems pretty simple to me.
What did I do? Yeah. Oh. Well, it's like I feel like after I've got this, I'm rebuilding this job site, and then I'm going to go back and like revisit this whole framework thing. Hopefully, like in the next few months or something, I can put it out there, because there are some things I'm excited about. Like that's one of them. But yeah, to answer your question, like specifically, like where this form gets put, it's basically like under /forms/ some form name. And so the form name is going to be like a vector of like post or put or whatever, like the HTTP verb, and then a name of a route, right? So for my job site, it's like listings, right? So like post listings or something like that, right? And then so like underneath, so like that's kind of like one directory, and underneath that you have a bunch of subdirectories of like the buffer, which is the current values that's like that are displayed in the inputs. There's like a base directory, which is like if you need to reset the form, like this is what the form started with, right? There's also errors if like you need to store errors there for some reason, like from the server, for example. And I think that there's a few other ones, but I think that those are the main ones, right? So like this is like, okay, how do you capture formness, the essence of form? And so that's what I've been trying to do there. And so like under buffer, for example, though, like you'll have basically like a file in this metaphor that corresponds to each attribute, like so like username, password, address, or whatever it was that you said. So yeah, so the function, like this function, you basically pointed at that, and it's able to the way that I've been doing it for myself, for the most part, like it's not super efficient, and I think there are ways to make it more efficient. But the way I've done it for myself is I have basically a function that looks at the form as a whole. So that's another kind of subdirectory, is like kind of inputs that it's the input that these different fields have received, right? So the function looks at that as a whole and says like, okay, like if you've blurred, if the username has received a blur and it's too short, then display this message, right? And so it just like it looks at the form as a whole, and then like outputs a map, and then there's like something else which there's it's probably actually I think a reframe subscription which says give me just the values for this particular input. So
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, because I think that's the nice thing about the like you say, the database. It's very reactive, So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can really rely on that to make things. Once you kind of grok it fully, you can really rely on it to make things quite simple as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
It
yeah.
itself is not simple, but it does make your life a lot easier.
It does. It does. It's
you
nice. It's
know,
nice. You can just. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to
Oh,
say, this whole graph that's getting fired off and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely
yeah.
there is some complexity there, and Mike's done a good job of of implementing it, obviously, but also kind of hiding it to some extent, you know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it does make
Yeah.
our life easier. So I think this is a good
It
example of
does.
simple, relatively simple, from a programming
Yeah.
perspective, and it is very
Yeah.
easy once you kind of fully get it. Yeah, and it's quite
Yeah.
Thanks.
clean.
Yeah. 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 And I definitely agree. Like reframe is definitely like part of what I think about for that, like being simple is like, okay, there's like a limited number of concepts here,
Yeah, yeah,
and he
yeah.
explains them all very well. And like
Mm.
they're new, right? I mean, they were new for me when I learned about it, right?
Mm.
Um, but it's also, I guess you're right. Like it's not conceptually, it's not a very complicated system. Reframe
Mm.
to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's a real pleasure to build on top of. I think part of where I was coming from with it was I was building this Hoplon app
Hmm.
for a while, and so which I definitely don't want to knock that at all, because it's like, made by like Misha and Alan, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Like it has a
yeah,
lot of interesting ideas, and it is
yeah.
good. And I also felt like the kind of emphasis on these cells, where you like each um, like the state is always kind of like isolated within this cell, and you have like this cell graph that's not
Mm.
addressable. I end up like finding like that was kind of difficult to work with, right? So like you might be modeling something, like if you're modeling some kind of input, it's all basically like local state, and if some other input outside of it wants to like peer into it, that became very difficult. I'm not sure if that's making sense, but like
Hmm.
a typical like use case might be like, as I type something in, I want to filter like a table,
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
reactively as I type in. So
Yeah.
you can specifically code that code it to work that way, um, using this kind of like non-addressable cell graph that Hoplon
Hmm.
had. And like that was possible, but there are ways in which I could kind of code myself into a corner and be like, how am I actually going to get this to work without like majorly changing everything? But like with Reframe, having everything in this global state atom, you
Yeah.
know, then like that's now accessible. Like outside of it's where other things can like actually view it and react to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just such a good. It's just so well done. I love it. I've used it for like years now, and I just fucking love it.
Yeah.
Where's Mike Thompson? Get him on here. I want to just like high five him, blow him
Yeah.
a kiss or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is the going back to the Ruby on Rails kind of discussion. I think that's what Ruby on Rails brought in, right? The joy when you're first time when you're
Yeah.
coding in it, it feels like you're so productive within so less amount of time, and then okay, and then later things go in different ways, but
Yeah.
but in the
Yeah.
case of
Yeah.
Reframe, I think the
Yeah.
ideas are so simple, and once they click, and
Yeah.
then you know you enjoy building the whole experience, which is something that, yeah, maybe this because closure podcast, and maybe we are preaching to the choir or something, and then I'm pretty sure in other
Yeah.
languages probably there is equivalent amount of passion around what they're doing. So
I
Yeah.
think what
yeah.
Yeah.
what you're getting at though, Daniel, is like, I think to me, like if I'm just reacting in real time to what you're thinking, it's like
Yeah.
it's the one of the common arguments with like boilerplate and stuff like this and repetitive stuff is just macro
Mhm.
your way out of it.
Mhm.
But then the other one is don't ever use macros. So it's like what am I gonna do? Macros, not macros. Don't use macros. Use macros. Don't use macros. Anyway, this is a constant. For me, this is a problem because like macros are
Yeah.
definitely powerful, but
Right.
also to if you like to avoid boilerplate, okay, use a macro, but but actually it's turned out that that's a pretty bad idea. So then you use data, but then as soon as you do that, it's like it's again, it's decoupling things. So you, like with the macro, you know what's going on. You get the data in the macro. Everything's transparent, if you like, to some extent. You can't compose over it, so that's the bad thing. But it is relatively straightforward enough. If you can get past all the Perl type squiggles and ats and shit, then you are reading Perl at that point, but it's like it's a different language completely. But if you can get past it, then okay, you can kind of grok what's going on, and you can all right, I see what's going on now. But there's limit to that macro, because as it gets more than 3 lines, really it starts to explode, in my opinion. You really have to, then you're putting things into functions, and macros become like a horror story pretty quickly, I think. At least in my hands. I think in more competent hands they're probably fine, but in my hands, after 3 lines, I'm done. So what you're doing is, like, you're saying, okay, there's a to avoid the boilerplate, essentially, we can use this data concept, and then we can take something and say, okay, look, this is how we do it. This is how we avoid the repetition, because that's the boring stuff, isn't it? That's the boilerplate. That's the stuff which is tedium. And so I think to remove tedium, you have to introduce another concept. You have to introduce something that says, I see you're experiencing some tedium. Let me help you with that.
There is a clippy coming out.
There's a clippy coming up. Yeah. I'm Daniel. May I help you with your tedium?
Oh my god. Yeah. Daniel, the existential clippy. Yeah. I see you're experiencing some ennui. Yeah. I have some like long bottom leaf for you. Yeah.
If only you had finished, the Hobbit game, you would have never reached to this level of, existential crisis.
It's true.
that nagging open side project that you have.
Oh, I know. It's gonna haunt me.
Yeah, anyway. But that's a really nice idea, though, Daniel. I think it's intriguing for sure. I'm eagerly awaiting the subscription now.
Thanks. Yeah, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, please send us some early access, codes, so we can try that out.
I'm ready to be, like, not done with it, but I'm ready to be done, just like doing it just by my. It's not, and it's all. The thing is, like, there's this whole front end component, and there's this like back end stuff too. And I wrote like all these Ansible scripts and stuff too, to just be like, just do this, and you can get your little web app. Like, nothing, like, this is not, you're not going to deploy like a whole cloud or something with this shit, but. You're playing around, you have a stupid idea, which I have like many of, and then you just want to get it out there. And then like this whole, there's like this whole kind of group of tools that like I've made over time of like, here's like how you build the thing and it puts it in the canonical place. And then like Ansible looks for it there and will like, deploy it to your server. And like, not only that, like it stands up all your servers, like in a way that like Nginx will look at your jar, like your Uber jar, like Jetty, process correctly. Like all this stuff has just been kind of like glued together. So I'm kind of pumped I'm really hoping I can get it out there like soon, because like it's on the one hand it's like super fun, but on the other hand it's like this is like starting to drive me crazy. Like I'm still doing this. I'm like, I want to put it out there and for someone else to take it over and make it like really good. And then give me all the credit. And then like this is my dream. I'm gonna do something else.
Just you don't want Daniel Higginbotham's family taking it over.
Oh my God, you're right. This is a scary
as long
thought.
as it stays within your clan.
I think the lady's going to take it over and put a really horrible face on it. Like the branding of it is going to be really disgusting. Yes. Now you listen to me.
Nice. Anyway,
you know what's
I think it's super interesting. So I think obviously you'll post about it on the interwebs, as they say. So I'll be super curious to listen, or at least see your ideas. What you're thinking about it, and then how you thought about it, how you've been using them, right? Because as I said, you're also building these closure-driven web applications already. So one of it is closure jobs, Brave closure jobs.
Yeah.
Jobs for the brave and true.
Jobs for the brave and true. Yeah, that's up there. That's been going for a while.
Yeah.
Jobs.braveclosure.com. And yeah, so I've been rewriting it, and part of how I've been thinking about it is like, what would the best possible closure jobs website look like, right? And the big thing that's missing from the existing website is all the other closure jobs that aren't on there. I think it's I think I want market dominance. But no, I really do. Occasionally you'll see threads pop up like, are people hiring closure developers? Things like that. I think maybe that's changing because it's becoming, it continues to gain traction. But I just really want there to be a place where it's just like, here's every single closure job that people are hiring for. And so part of that is switching to a freemium model. And then another part of it too is just making it really easy for these companies. So the way it works currently is like, some person creates an account and then posts a job, and they have to post like, if they want to post multiple jobs, they have to enter in the same company info and things like that. So there's actually no first class notion of a company. So that's needs to change, because I also want companies to be able to be highlighted too. Like eventually I want to be able to do things like highlight companies' interactions with the closure community. Like if they donate to Closure Bridge or Closure Us Together or things like that, as a kind of like these social badges, things like that. But then also for people who are interested in closure to be able to see like, holy shit, there's a lot of closure companies out there. So
I think that's something that that every time surprises me, because I used to run this conference in the Netherlands called Dutch Closure Day, and every time I start doing this, every year, trying to reach out to the sponsors, and somebody who knows somebody will tell me that, hey, these people are using Closure. Like, the fuck? I mean, this is like 2 meters away where I sit, and I don't know that they're using Closure. It's annoying. So the discoverability has always been a problem in closure companies. There are bigger companies, some names that already. Obviously, Alex Miller is doing a really good job of every time somebody says, "Hey, we're using Closure," he'll put it into the in the Closure website. But it's I think this whole idea of we don't know who is using Closure, or there are not enough jobs or something, and also the most annoying part is that we use Slack, which is the open source, the free version. All the shit disappears, which is one of the stupidest shit that any programming community can do. But
I quite like that in some ways, because it's like the Snapchat of Closure.
The shit keeps disappearing.
You can put anything up there and it'll just disappear.
Yeah, exactly. Wait for and now the shittiest part for me is that somebody replied to some thread that I wrote something at some point. Now the fucking threads thing is bold, and I cannot make it like read all or anything. Now in my Closure and Slack, every other channel is red, like mark all messages red, but the fucking threads thing is still bold fucking forever. Now I keep thinking, what did they give me? Like, did they send me some Bitcoin or something? I don't know. Only Slack people know now.
So this is the OCD really kicking in heavily on on Slack.
I'm not that active on Slack either, because it's like a fucking closed source crap anyway. But so on I think that's a beautiful digression rant. Now let's get back to the closure jobs thing. Yes, I think that's a really good idea to highlight which companies are using, and how actively they're participating in the closure community. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting. Now I'm just thinking about like your arch nemesis, like listening to this and be like, I'm gonna get on Slack
and then send him
mention him in a thread.
And he's not on.
Yeah.
and then keep swamping, keep pushing more messages until it disappears.
Yes.
Fuck. Yeah. Maybe that's basically what they want to do. So no.
Yeah.
They're already doing
you won.
it. They're already doing
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The plan is
You
already
won.
in action.
It was you, Ray, wasn't it?
Yes. I'm mentioning Emacs in lots and lots of threads.
Yes.
But not in a good way.
Well, if I don't see it, I only assume it's awesome. So, that brings to the question. Obviously, we know the answer to. So Emacs or other shit. So what is your answer, Daniel? Emacs or some other shit?
Oh, some other shit. You know what's funny? About a year ago, I switched to Doom Emacs.
Okay.
So which uses Vim key bindings by default.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I was like, fuck it, let's go crazy. We're in the middle of this pandemic. What am I gonna do? Let's learn some Vim key bindings. So that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, nice. Emacs, but like kind of evil mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that's something that I do as well, because I've been using Spacemacs for long enough, and for me, when I go into the insert mode, I'm in Emacs mode. When I'm in the normal mode, I'm in the Vim mode. So
we've now stopped this Clojure podcast, and we introduce you to the Emacs section of the podcast. Back to you, gentlemen.
Welcome to Emacs podcast.
Yeah. Let me recite my init.l to you. You'll find it moving, thrilling. Yeah.
So EL stands for emotional language.
Yes, it is.
He means it. I mean, he really does.
Yeah.
No, but it's fair enough,
It is.
Yeah, fine. All right.
Emacs is a way of life. So
I'm not going to EL shame you.
Nice. So I've been using Doom, and that, I give that a try like a few times, but I keep falling back to Spacemacs most of the time. Spacemacs is my thing, and then I remember like the first commits to the Clojure layer on Spacemacs, so I'm still using the same thing. But it's been I don't think there is any other comparable things to Emacs anyway. So on that bombshell.
Welcome back to the Clojure podcast.
This Clojure podcast is brought to you by Emacs people. We're sponsored by Emacs. Cool.
So maybe what else can we talk about Clojure-wise now? Yes. I've got that shit out of the way.
Because I want to just ask you like a few things about the Clojure for the Brave and True book, right? So that book is available now in print, in digital form everywhere, so people can buy it. I think this is one of the best introductory book, or I would say like the first book of Clojure, I think. So are you planning to work on the second editions or something like that, or?
I don't have any plans for a second edition of that book, and I mean, maybe someday it'll happen. But I mean, there's some kind of mistakes in there that I still get kind of emailed about or tweeted at, and I'm just kind of like, it's fine. Probably my biggest regret is like the Emacs. Actually, speaking of Emacs, even though I love Emacs, like I just don't want people, because like things have changed so much like on the Emacs side, and like I don't really want to keep up with it, and also I don't want people to have like a bad experience. So I feel bad for the folks who have had a bad experience in that way, but I feel like the rest of it's like it's still more things have been added, but what's there is like good. So
it's a testament to the stability of the language. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you don't need to build a new book like every time there is a 0.1 release somewhere, and then because the core concepts are still the same. That means that you have to know them anyway to become a good Clojure programmer. So that's cool.
Yeah, I remember it's so true. Like I want to share briefly. Like I remember a couple of years ago, I had to write actual JavaScript, and it had been like so long, and it was just like I remember like telling my coworkers like it's like visiting my childhood home, but like there have been like all these weird rooms added. Like one of them's like, you know, gold plated for some reason, and there's like this dungeon. Who put that there? Why would they do that? You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like it was so bizarre. But yeah, like Closure,
Yeah.
definitely. It's so. I mean, it's you know, these various little side projects I have. It's like it's nice. I can pop into them like years later, and like make a little update or something, and like
everything works. Yeah.
It all just works. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's true. I think that is something that that we, at least from my whatever the little experience that I have in the programming world, that I haven't seen in other languages. You know, that because things well, obviously not JavaScript. You know,
Right.
they should change us like every nanosecond or something. It goes at fucking light speed. That yesterday it was this one, and then today there are like 20 new frameworks now and new testing tools and whatnot and everything.
Yeah,
so
I think the biggest one
crazy.
the biggest one for me around Closure, and I think it's the only significant change I would say in the last 5 years, is deps.eden.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
but I don't use it.
I mean,
just
I think spec is like something else. We can shoot that one in the head later, but you know, I think well, it's the owner of it has already shot it in the head as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just like, you know, watching. You know. But you know, but deps.eden is a live thing. It's, you know, that's you know, apparently it's alpha, but you know, some parts of it aren't, some parts of it are. It's very complicated, but I think essentially it's that's not going away. Then that's, you know, that's part of the Closure thing now. So that's the only thing I would say that is like, I don't know if you cover that in the book. I can't remember. I haven't reread it for this show, I'm afraid. But you know,
I can't believe you wouldn't reread.
Yeah, exactly.
My 200 whatever pages. Of,
let me just quickly get it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think in general, it's very stable. So it's like the amount of rework that you need to do is, like you say, pretty minor.
Yeah, the core language is like there's like no changes. I think it's everything up to CoreSync. I think some of CoreSync. I think some of the things that they came out after the book were like transducers. I'm trying to remember what else. There may be a few other things, but yeah, spec though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yes.
Core language, super stable.
So I think we could go on poking your brain more and more, but I think this would be a good time to take a pause and then wait for you to release your awesome.
Just 1 second before we do it, Daniel. Is there anything else, Daniel, before we go that we've missed out, or that, you know, that like is bubbling under the surface of your the firmament of your imagination?
one of the other side obsessions.
Oh gosh, well, what to share? What to share? I don't know. I think one thing is like I continue to be like so amazed that like, I mean, I feel like for a little while I felt like things were getting kind of like boring or dull, I guess, in the Closure community. Like not much happening, and like that's not the case right now. Like Babashka, for example, awesome, and like all the folks at like Medicine and Juxt and stuff, and the stuff that's like the stuff that's coming out now. It's like, I don't know. I'm super excited by all of it. I think for myself, I'm just gonna keep pushing on these different, like the main idea I think I'm just gonna keep pushing on is like how can I help people get like stupid ideas out there quicker, and like I don't know, that's and yeah, but and the work that these other folks are doing is like very exciting to me, because I feel like that's like I really want to spend more time like looking at that to see how that can like move that forward. I've got so many ideas, y'all. It's like I got the website dumbidea.club, the domain name. I just want to make that. I want to that's something I want to put out there. I have these different domain names. badnewspotato.club. So many things I want to put out there, but instead I'm just like, just for some reason trying to make tools to make it easier to put them out there. But anyway, hopefully
Nice.
that'll be done, and then you can see badnewspotato.club some point in the future.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll keep refreshing that page now.
Yeah.
Keep. I think we should write a Babushka script that is going to poke that domain, continuously. Do I get a proper HTML response back?
But I agree with you, though, Daniel. I do agree with you that it's like, there's a lot of like, oh, we missed the boat, we missed the early days of Clojure, and that was the best part. And I think actually there's plenty more to come. And we see that burgeoning in the community right now.
Yeah.
And that's good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
So
thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
Thanks
pleasure.
a lot, Daniel, for joining. And thanks a lot for all the hard work that you're doing, and especially for the Clojure for the Brave and True book. I do recommend that to most of the folks who want to get started with Clojure, especially because it has it uses Emacs. So let them see the light first, and then they can decide switching to some other inferior tools later.
I bet Daniel Higginbotham is a Vim user.
Yes. I think if we ever find Daniel Higginbotham, I think we're gonna have you and then that person on the podcast, and then so you can duel
the alter ego.
Yeah, exactly. duel the ideas at some point. Anyway, on that bombshell, I think that's it from us for this episode. So stay safe, and thanks again. Big thanks to Daniel for joining us and giving a piece of his mind.
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of DefN. And the awesome vegetarian music or the track is Melon Hamburger by Pizzeri. And the show's audio is mixed by Wouter Dullert. I'm pretty sure I butchered his name. Maybe you should insert your own name here, Dullert.
Wouter.
If you'd like to support us, please do check out our Patreon page, and you can show your appreciation to all the hard work or the lack of hard work that we're doing. And you can also catch up with either Ray with me for some unexplainable reason. You want to interact with us, then do check us out on Slack, Clojurian Slack or Clojureverse, or on Zulip, or just at us at DefN Podcast on Twitter. Enjoy your day and see you in the next episode.